Okay, welcome to the FilmGamer podcast, season 5, episode 2, number, of course, 52 overall. Let's get right into it with the box office report. I have a new setup this week. You might notice that the audio is better, even though I am without my pop filter, so I'll try to mind my popping peas and my silent hisses. Um, yeah, so I have a cool setup where I am using my PS4 in order to look at my internet browser, and that way I have a big screen in front of me. Without further ado, let's get into the box office report in numbers. Of course, the RAM on my PS4 is super low, so I don't understand what the F is going on now, so I'm gonna have to wing it. We'll do it live. We'll do it live. No, of course, I have a backup. The page is not responding. Do I want to stop processing the page? There is not enough system memory. We are all about pushing limits here, but it is back. Okay, so Lilo and Stitch, number one at the box office this weekend. No surprise. Why? It appeals to more people than Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which is the number 2 movie. It Lilo and Stitch is an unqualified hit. It has about $278 million domestically total. Why is that significant? Well, I guess because it was from, if you're supposed to go by the little birds, meant for Disney Plus and cost $100 million. So it's already made 2.7 times its budget just in North America alone, 613 million worldwide. It's immediately profitable, and it cost 4 times less than Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, which is down about 57%, about average, only in about 3,800 theaters, um, which is quite a bit, but Lilo and Stitch is in 4,400. I would say there's about 4,500 to 5,000 theaters in North America. Um, so for a wide release back in like 2007, 3,000 was quite a bit. Um, oh, I remember Mission Impossible 3 was one of the first movies I noticed that got pushed to over 4,000 theaters. But anyways, the Final Reckoning course correction after Dead Reckoning, which disappointed at the box office. Now they have the IMAX releases because they ran straight into the Barbenheimer truck last time and it didn't do as well. Mission Impossible 7. So they booked IMAX for 3 weeks. So they got that cushion, those grosses, where, the inflated IMAX prices, the premium large format theaters, Mission Impossible gets all of those. So despite competition from Lilo and Stitch, which is, women, girls, and families, Mission Impossible gets the guys and women. There are a lot of people who like movies who will go see both. But it's not like a Barbenheimer phenomenon where people go see both because they're uniquely great filmmakers and stuff. These are both similar to Glicked, where they're two studio movies that just happen to release on the same day and there's no cross pollination. So Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning cost about $400 million. Not including marketing, no one ever does. Although Disney does, apparently, with their estimates. Um, this movie is doing fine. It's made about 350 million worldwide, cost 400 million. The logic for greenlighting a movie like this, especially after the last one kind of disappointed, is that A, they were already half in the bag, they had all the same crew. Um, the second part of it is that it's the eighth installment, and it operates similar to broadcast television, where because you have a big bulk of content, you can then sell that en masse in ancillaries down the line in collections, that kind of thing. So it fattens the pie. It actually makes the pie bigger. It's not like you're starting from scratch and then hoping for a lot. So, even if Mission Impossible weren't to make profit in its initial theatrical run, there's an established line of, okay, there's DVD, then there's digital, there's premium rentals, there is collections, there's 4K Blu-ray, DVD sales, and I know they're not what they used to be, but people still buy them, and those people are people who will get Mission Impossible on 4K. Um, my dad is one of them. I am one of them. My brothers are one of them. So, a lot to look forward to. The big new release this weekend was Karate Kid Legends, which only cost about $45 million. Dollars. There were some arguments on Deadline.com of whether it's like, oh, you dummies, you released a TV show and now you want to go back and be a movie. Well, it doesn't work that way. On the contrary, I disagree. I think that the reason that this movie didn't do bigger, for reference, the last Karate Kid, which was the 2010 Jaden Smith movie, opened in about 50 million, was pretty well reviewed, and then they never made a sequel and never followed it up. So this kind of brings it together. Two legends, one branch. You have Daniel LaRusso from the um, original Karate Kid strain, and then you have Jackie Chan from the remake. That kind of works. I like that conceit. I like how it's kind of come full circle because it's like an Asian kid um, for karate. That makes sense. I hear his name, Ben Wang, that he's good. I'm sure the karate is good. The reviews for it are mixed. They're not as well reviewed as the last movie. And I just find, in terms of stakes, cinematography, scope, this seems a lot smaller. It's kind of like they hedged their bets a little. And that's kind of been the case with a lot of Sony releases. Bad Boys 3 and 4 do not look as big as Michael Bay's Bad Boys 2. Um, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, $110 million budget or something like that. Does not seem as big as the 145 million female Ghostbusters, as bad as that movie is. Um, you get a lot of these like kind of side quel legacy sequels that Sony's churning out of like, hey, remember this? And none of it feels like new. I mean, Final Destination Bloodlines at least feels like it's contributing something overall to the mythos that's significant and doesn't feel like a side quest. So let's get rid of these, side quest movies that Sony is dealing with, because after Karate Kid Legends, their big movie is 28 years later, which was developed in a package of like three movies. They already got the second one in the can, but they cost about 80 million. That's their big blockbuster of the year. They're not spending big on movies anymore. And it's just a shame. It's just pretty much, is it Spider-Man? Yes, spend as much as you need. If not, F off. And Sony is just kind of, it feels like a company that's like biding its time to wait and be bought or sold or something, which is weird because they have more IP than anyone else, being a game company. But yeah, Final Destination Bloodlines makes over 100 million. Of course, in 2 weeks, it'll already be out on digital to rent. Um, Apparently, they didn't expect it to do so well, so they marked it for June 4th and then delayed it by 2 weeks after it opened to $50 million. And it's made over 100 million domestically, a feat that neither of the previous five Final Destinations over the last 25 years have ever done. So, reaching your peak, at least financially, in terms of cultural penetration, that is super impressive. And it's over 200 million worldwide. It does a little bit better overseas than it does here, which is surprising for an American franchise. I actually was just talking with Jeffrey Reddick, the creator of it, criticizing the digital release, and he's like, "Hey, you know what? Filmmakers." He has very little involvement with this one. I'm pretty sure none. And he's like, "Hey, listen, filmmakers don't get to decide, that kind of thing." Which, granted, Jeffrey, you're correct, but I'm still bummed about it because I love to whine. That's why I have this podcast. Number five is Bring Her Back, a movie which looked very spooky, very effective, from the creators of another horror hit for A24 that was Talk to Me. Um, Something that to me seemed like modern and kind of like cool conceptually, and then when you look at the film, it feels like a short film stretched to feature length. Now, I hope that is not the case for Bring Her Back, which looks somewhat typical, but these filmmakers bring an edge to it. But Talk to Me felt, essentially, and I learned this today, that the filmmakers were YouTubers. And it makes sense to me because it, uh, looking at Bring Her Back, it feels like a bit like Goodnight Mommy, a bit like the reverse Babadook or Mama or something like that. But, there's always room to be scared. And, I'm glad that there's product being brought to the markets that satisfy people's needs. Sinners still hanging in there. Number six, dropped 38%, one of the smallest drops. Although I was quick to correct one of the exhibitors online because the smallest drop, actually. Well, there's a movie by Magnolia Pictures called Sister Midnight that I'd like to look up, but I won't because I'm trying to, if it comes up again, I'll look it up. That's the new rule for movies I've never heard of that I'll never talk about again in my life on this podcast. If they come up a second time, that's when because I can look this up on my own and I'll have something to say, but that or Clown in a Cornfield or something like that. Other movies. Hurry up tomorrow. But yeah, for now I'll leave it off the table. But Jane Austen Wrecked My Life is 92.7% increase. Um, so technically that's done the best. And then if you want to scroll way lower, you got Caught by the Tides, you got a bunch of stuff that wasn't reported yesterday. Um, Bob Trevino likes it. I reviewed it. Read it on the independent.co.uk. French Stewart John Leguizamo movie. Feel good stuff. Flow still hanging in theaters in its 28th week by Giannis Films. Um, the one that I was trying to find though is not listed here. Um, and if I can go back up, well, I find it was a religious movie. But I can't. Shall We Dance? Re released by somebody. I am going to check because I think I can stall here enough. Is it the original Hong Kong one? Yes, it is. Or, sorry, Japanese one. I still haven't seen that one. Maybe I'll have to see it because I've seen the Richard Gere one with Stanley Tucci, Jennifer Lopez a bunch of times. Then you got Ran re-release. You know, people think of these re-releases as kind of nouveau, but um, they've always been going on. Um, moving back down the list again, Sinners doing really well, 267 million. Um, down to was it 350? Yeah, 350 worldwide, which of course is a big number, but man, did international drop the ball because it's three times less than in North America. I get that Warner Brothers is cheaping out overseas, and that's part of their strategy. That's why Twisters collapsed, but I don't know. You'd think that they'd have a better rollout, but I guess these things have to be planned in advance. Thunderbolts, number seven, saw it in theaters, thought it was unremarkable. It's hit 180 million. I find 175 million to be the Marvel threshold because the first Captain America made 174 million. This one, 180. It cost about 185 million total. Um, opened from 74, so it's crawling. And again, all of these Marvel films will be profitable because they do numbers on streaming and they help Disney float, but not immediately profitable because it's not immediately good. Number eight, Friendship, in still growing, 1,200 theaters. So you could probably search for it in your city if you wanted to see it. Um, I realize now, especially with Warfare, A24 movies, they don't come to video and they don't often have physical releases anymore. Um, or if they ever did, I'm not sure. So that's kind of like an interesting thing to think about. Anyway, 2.5 million opened at the beginning of May, had the best per theater average of the year until the Phoenician scheme, which I'll get to, came out. Um, but yeah, doing well. 12 million. Usually these movies don't do huge overseas or international rollouts. A24 usually just picks up domestic. It hasn't even released internationally yet. It's a very American film. I find that A24, again, they're mostly just a distributor, but they got those foreign pickups that, are from foreign well-respected artists. And then they have these fascinating American films that are from American artists. And it's, I don't know, or at least take or American stories. I find Friendship is kind of one of those, and people are desperate for comedy. So, you know, relevant to its distributor and how much they put into the movie, it's doing fine. Uh, Last Rodeo, Angel Studios. Again, Angel Studios, they've spent reasonably well as a studio on the Sound of Freedom. They haven't quite had a major hit because that was like lightning in a bottle. But The Last Rodeo is about Neil McDonough, guy who always plays a bad guy. You can follow him on TikTok or his daughter Catherine. Blonde haired, albino looking guy, piercing blue eyes. He was Sean Cahill on Suits. He was in Minority Report. He was the one who told Tom Cruise not to run. He ran anyway. Anyways, this guy makes a big deal about never kissing anyone on screen who's not his wife, and they finally hired his wife for a movie. So he kisses her in this romantic drama about a bull rider who's going for one last rodeo. So, might be nice streaming fodder if you're bored. Who knows? Good for this guy who always plays bad guys to play a good guy in a main role. Good for him. Um, J Hope Tour, Hope on Stage in Japan live viewing. This is something that only played on Saturday, and it was like a one night only concert in the theater. I'm always fascinated how these play out, but there's not really any way to measure it. $1 million for concert that people already paid for. Hey, you know, more power to you, populating. And that's the top 10. There's not really many updates. Minecraft movie is about 50 million short of a billion. Counting to 65 million, not really profitable. It's about 95, still under 100, woefully under what the first film did. They really could have elevated it with this one, and instead they like miscalculated on what they thought based on the movies that do well now the success of The Accountant was, which was its connection, however loosely, of accounting to an action thriller and kind of tied this disparate by the numbers plot. With this one, it's just basically a vigilante movie and gives John Bernthal and Ben Affleck some banter, but doesn't let them have fun with it. They try and have fun, but it feels like a midlife crisis movie. But anyways, I'll leave it at that for the top 10 because again, I'm trying to be expedient. The Phoenician Scheme set the record for per theater average. So that is movie uh, where it opened in 6 theaters, made about 90,000 per theater. This is usually because it plays in really big cities where ticket prices are very high. You would think that because of the competition, ticket prices would be lower, but it's actually not the case. I find that interesting. I don't really know how it works. Perhaps I could do another interview if I get another show on it. But yeah, it made 93,000 per theater. Good for Wes Anderson, I guess. It, his whole scheme, I mean, he's funded by one billionaire, which is the studio Indian Paintbrush, who just bought Criterion. You know, that's what you like doing. Go and do it. And side note, his Wes Anderson story writer, Roman Coppola, I read a particularly inspiring review of the one movie that he has done. For those of you who don't know, Roman Coppola is the son of Francis Ford Coppola, um, who, made The Godfather. And he made one movie in his life that I know of, directed, and correct me if I'm wrong, A Glimpse Inside the Mind of Charles Swan III, a movie that is known to be horrid, but it is also notable for being the very first release A24 ever made. But since then, he's collected quite a few Oscar nominations because he writes stories with Wes Anderson. Also, because of that, Owen Wilson is an Oscar nominee because he co-wrote, um, I believe it was Royal Tenenbaums, or it might have been Darjeeling, or both, but he was only nominated for one of them. I'll lean towards Royal, um, for Best Original Screenplay. So, you know, Wes Anderson, he has his fans. He does his thing. People like it. I watched The French Dispatch. I didn't like it, but it's like, you know, I can go for another. It's like I haven't really ever loved any Wes Anderson movie. In fact, Rushmore for the longest time as a kid was my least favorite film of all time. course, have seen way more torturous movies since then, and I think I rewatched Rushmore at one point. But um, yeah, um, I thought that um, I thought that can I go to my activity? I thought that I think I saw it the second time briefly, or maybe I rented it on video. I don't know, and I'm like, you know what? This is okay. But his style is very distilled, very dollhouse now. Everybody wants to copy it. And you know, there it is. So there's my box office, which I covered under 20 minutes. So good, great, grand, wonderful. We're moving on to the Letterboxd diary. Whoop, that didn't seem to affect the that much, the microphone, so good. So since this isn't loading, yes, I want to stop processing this page. Yes, I know there isn't enough free system memory. What I wanted to do was get rid of it, but guess what? That doesn't matter because um, I got my diary. Okay, is it going to let me look at my whole diary? Let's see. Because I have 4 films I've seen since, which I'll get to. Um, but seeing if this loads, yes, it does. So, considering my last one was, Bulworth, Working Man, Freaky Tales, I'll just mention, yeah, I liked Bulworth. Yeah, 3.5 stars. Freaky Tales, I liked. You've seen me share the clips if you follow me on any social media. I uploaded YouTube clips, I uploaded TikTok clips of it. Um, I watched The Wolfman afterwards. Freaky Tales was my favorite of the week. Run Silent, Run Deep. So I am just gonna focus on movies I've seen since May 23rd because I gave Run Silent, Run Deep 2.5 stars, and it's like it's good for its era. It's a movie from 1958, so it's slightly involving and then boring and just hard to watch without looking at your phone. Watch Crimson Tide. You won't look at your phone for a second for that. Very good movie on Disney Plus. Gene Hackman at his best. Denzel Washington early at his best, and it is Quentin Tarantino and Aaron Sorkin trading scripts about two men, both co-captains, trying to take over a ship in the midst of what they believe might be a nuclear winter and trying to prevent it, perhaps by striking first. And it's the greatest tug of war if I've ever seen one. I find submarine movies to be very limited. Other filmmakers love them because it's a natural pressure cooker. And there is a sequence in Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, um, which I'm writing my review about, that is top tier, the best the series has ever seen. Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, however, is not the best the series has ever seen. And I wrote on my Letterboxd, which again you can follow me at FilmGamer, The Impossible finally catches up with Cruise, despite showing characteristic flair for supporting actors and sets along with a great submarine sequence, possibly the best I've ever seen. The weight of the franchise finally capsizes with a silly villain, AI, reluctant, and its assistant, reluctance to say goodbye both to Hunt and, in particular, some of his cohorts as it slows down to remind the audience of all the other better films in the franchise. This is a movie that cuts back to clips several times, a lot of it which is unnecessary. The plot doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and there isn't a whole lot of action, but despite the gargantuan, nearly 3 hour running time, the movie still flies by. It didn't feel like a 3 hour film. Cruise echoes the characteristics of other international past their prime heroes called back for one last mission. The Ethan Hunt of May 22nd, 1996, which is a date that's referenced, is nowhere to be seen on May 23rd, 2025. By that I mean it's like Cruise playing Cruise. In the earlier Mission Impossibles, it feels like he's playing a character, but since Fallout, he doesn't feel like he's Hunt. He feels like he's Cruise as Hunt. Complicated. I won't get into it, coupled with some not so subtle retcons and a bunch of remember when, remember this flashbacks. The Final Reckoning has as much in common with Clip Show as it does with its immediate predecessor. Somebody like that, that's good. Um, my reviews aren't often that popular on the Letterboxd, but anyways, I've been thinking about it, trying to put together a review. um, without AI, by the way, because I used it for Dead Reckoning Part 1 and I liked it, but felt a bit dirty. Now it's been 2 years and I kind of want to do the opposite and do it without AI. The thing is, I use AI to get the skeletal structure of my reviews, which makes things move along a lot quicker. Like I would have been done this review by now. But I steadfastly refuse. And it's kind of one of the things where it's like, if I never write another review, and there are movies where the review just comes out of me instantaneously, like I used to do ones in 5 hours. Um, that was when I had a lot more focus and drive. I was in university. But this one is going to take some time. Right after the night I got home from watching The Final Reckoning, I watched a movie that was released the same day. Why would they compete? This movie cost a lot. The Fountain of Youth. Guy Ritchie, director of Sherlock Holmes, who's kind of into studio mode. He made the Aladdin remake. And all I wrote about Fountain of Youth was spend all you can, take nothing back. Um, this movie has a good start. And I noticed this in movies and screenplays of like that's what got them into the room. There's a lot of movies, particular action movies, where something exciting happens. It keeps you busy for the first 20 minutes. If it's better, the first 45 minutes. If it's a good movie, it's all the way through, or it's structurally different and it pulls you in later on. This movie is not that. It's like a good 45 minutes and then it runs out of steam and moseys on to the end. Um, it's a knockoff adventure movie. Um, again, has some chutzpah and then really grinds to a halt. John Krasinski kind of miscast, but it doesn't matter because it's somebody called this the Citizen Kane of second screen experiences because this is a streaming movie where made by a phone company who kind of expects you to look at their phone. Although it is funny that they made F1 because, hey, if you don't diversify your portfolio, then what are you going to do? Terrifier 3. This was an interesting movie because it's R rated. This review may contain spoilers. All right, I put this in. I gave it 1.5 stars. It's a bad movie. Um, because he's dressed in black and white and he's silent. He's a mime, not a clown, but his name is Art the Clown. Bad start. Art is neither humorous enough for campiness similar to Freddy Krueger, nor tasteless enough for exploration. This is for Terrifier 3, available on Paramount Plus. A horror movie which upset Joker and made more money than Joker and was huge because Bloody Disgusting, who's a magazine, online magazine, previously a physical magazine, made this, funded it, promoted it directly to the fans, and they made Terrifier 1 and Terrifier 2. And those were unrated movies. They built up a bit of a fan base and then boom, it exploded. Made like $50 million off of a nothing budget. And watching it, you can tell how low budget it is. But anyways, this serial killer, he's um, not funny enough for Freddy Krueger or tasteless enough for pure exploitation. Did I write exploration? Yes, I did. Um, you get a boring figure who lacks the menace of Michael Myers, the intensity of Jason, or the parody of the Hatchet movies and other straight to video series. Why does this disgusting, and it's like deliberately disgusting, not really in a fun way, but fun for some sick people, but hey, all filmmakers are sick. Unrated film cover up nudity. That's seems to go against the exploitative spirit of the production, but it'll give us a guy being sodomized by a chainsaw. This movie has odd values, but that comes with the territory, I guess. Found the kills to be drawn out and repetitive. The force feeding kill was creative but wasn't well directed. The climax is satisfying. That comes long after a nowhere bar scene that really tests the audience's patience. Although it does have Clint Howard, which I like. I like Clint Howard. I know him from The Water Boy, and he's just like, who dat, who dat? And of course, Ron Howard's brother. He also guest starred in Star Trek TV series, Star Trek Discovery season 2 finale, I believe it was. Anyway, I liked how the main character, and this is a spoiler alert, in the ending completely kind of loses everything. And I like the opening. That's all. So it has a good opening and a good ending, but it's like a would be good 80-minute movie stretched to 2 hours and franchised. So it's like, yeah, we got to make a living, so this is going to be exploitative. But it, I hate movies when it's like, oh, well, watch out for the sequel. It's like, no, this should have been the best thing ever, and then you should have promised me more. Instead, it feels like for an exploitative film that you're holding it back. So, yeah. Um, the other thing that's going on right now that I'm kind of thrown by just slightly is there's an ad that I've been seeing a bunch of times for a phone game where it's like the ad is like a live action thing of like that seems like a cool movie, and then you know it's a guy solving a murder on an actual pinboard, and I've seen it where it's like Pedro Pascal. I'm like, oh, awesome, and then it's for like a mobile game that looks nothing like that. It's like f that. But anyways, moving on. Sudden Impact. Dirty Harry. This is the one Dirty Harry that I haven't seen. Contains his most famous catchphrase of "Go ahead, make my day." It has such a cool little episode, great first 20 minutes of Dirty Harry stopping a robbery. It's his most famous enduring catchphrase because he says, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" Um, but yeah, Sudden Impact. This is the one that Clint Eastwood directed himself. It's a thing you always wonder for actors turned directors like Clint Eastwood of like, well, why don't they just direct everything all the time? It's one thing I wondered as a kid, and the answer to that is just like they're not that talented. Like not everybody's Steven Spielberg. Like there's not there's a special effects heavy sequence in Hereafter, Clint Eastwood movie. He doesn't deal a whole lot in special effects. He's very grounded in the stories that he makes. But, a lot of it too is like it's easier to just act and collect a paycheck that way and do like five movies rather than spend your heart and soul pour it into one movie and then it maybe turns out to be good or not. So respect Clint for picking his battles. He is also in the news this week because he said, I've shot about three sequels in my life, and people hated me because I guessed which sequels they were, and I named sequels that he acted in and didn't direct, trying to figure out what the other ones were. Because he's like, he shot three sequels, you moron. And I'm like, okay, name the three sequels. And of course, they couldn't. It's this Twitter brain thing where people like to point out someone being wrong without explaining why they're right, which in the Reddit sense is the wrong way to do it. You show somebody how they're wrong and why they're stupid, which is funny, but then you also give the right answer. And that's what creates value. You can't just say somebody's wrong without context. Come on. So, I'll just get to my review of Sudden Impact. We're not just going to let you walk out of here. Good plot, a bit slack in the middle and slightly overlong, like most Dirty Harry movies. Sandra Locke was well cast. Her and Clint Eastwood had a bit of a relationship in real life, by the way. They were also in The Gauntlet together in a couple of her films. And she does so well. She has a haunting Carrie-like stare. Um, and the first 20 minutes of this movie are perfect and has the best scene in the entire series, even though it's beat for beat similar to the first. Each Harry installment touches on an element of criminal. You got serial killers in Dirty Harry, police overreach in Magnum Force, revolutionaries, that part's undercooked in The Enforcer, um, diversity, equity, inclusion um, in and well, celebrity in the Deadpool. That's number five. Um, I'm trying to think because what I get one, two, three, four, five, six. F6. This is SVU, so this is four. Special Victims Unit. It's like a rape case. Sandra Locke was sexually assaulted along with her sister, so it's like revenge, so I get that. DEI is with number three in The Enforcer, because Dirty Harry has a female partner. Um, and I just kind of like that, how each Dirty Harry movie touches on an element of law enforcement that's long discussed. So it like contributes to the conversation and gives the movies a bit of weight. And I liked it. And then it has, the familiar tropes and stuff. I wish that you could kind of combine all of it into one movie. Like, imagine a movie where an overfunded police force, like, and I use this term lightly, but the NYPD has to hunt a serial killer, and they put together a task force of essentially cops who are known for being killers, and they at the same time have to deal with revolutionary movement like Black Lives Matter and an offshoot, think like a Black Panther offshoot who gets violent. Meanwhile, there's a detective caught in the middle who has like a female trans whatever partner who themselves has a past of, violence against that. And apart from that, as this goes on, they all become kind of celebrities. Like that would be Dirty Harry on steroids, like a Dirty Harry bomb. That'd be something. But yeah, I like the Dirty Harry movies. It's one of the few franchises that was before my time. That I guess Police Academy is the other. But yeah, it's interesting. I liked it. I gave it 3 stars, and I ranked the Dirty Harry series where, of course, the first one, Dirty Harry is the best. That's essential. And then you got, um, it's interesting. They all bring one element. But number two, I would do Magnum Force just because it advances some of the themes of the first movie. Because people are like, Dirty Harry's too much of a vigilante. We got to pull it back the other way and show why Dirty Harry's different from, a murder squad of cops. So that's interesting. And then I would put this one, Sudden Impact, and then I would put The Enforcer because the title has kind of nothing to do with it, but I like Dirty Harry's partner, which is nice. And then the Deadpool last because it's like old hat by that point. There's an element of celebrity to it, but it and Dirty Harry has like some cool catchphrases. You got Liam Neeson, you got Jim Carrey, so it's not a total wash, but yeah, it's the least well-made movie, and I can see why Clint stopped making them after that. Then we go on to Disney Plus. I hadn't seen movies on Disney Plus in a while, and I actually wrote a bit about this because it's a Marvel movie, and I haven't liked Marvel movies in a while. But I gave this one 3 stars, and it surprised me because I heard some terrible reviews for it. But you know what? I heard good reviews for Thunderbolts, and my thoughts on that. It was a bad movie. This movie I gave 3 stars. Um, Here's what I wrote. As soon as Donald Trump ends his second term, yes, I'm going into politics on this, and goes to jail, you'll see all this C plus movie as some hidden masterpiece or some shit. Um, yes, this movie kind of, I don't know if it tiptoes around or stumbles into it, but political topicality. This is something that blockbuster movies, especially four quadrant comic book movies like this, sprint away from. But the good thing that it shields itself in is kind of DEI because it has a black Captain America that people are focused on, but it's an established Captain America who's been handed off. They put down the story steps for it. So, you have someone like Anthony Mackie, and you're like, yeah, he is Captain America now. Now, they didn't put the same care into it, and the filmmaking mechanism is broken because the first three Captain America movies are amazing by comparison, and this movie sucks. But it's nowhere near as bad as other recent MCU products. Brave New World, as it's called, completely embraces its serialized comic book nature, resulting in minor payoffs for storylines for fans who have been watching since The Incredible Hulk, i.e., me. The CGI is unremarkable, but more finished than it likely was in the theaters. This happens sometimes. They release the movie, the movie trailer has awful CGI. It's slightly better in the movie in theaters, and then they get more time to render and finish it for the home video release. This happens more than you would think, actually. You would think that movie's done in theaters, but yes, sometimes they do tweak it. Um, the movie has a better looking aesthetic than Thunderbolts, which is all gray. Even if they still suffer from the CGI mush problem, the way that the filmmaker, and I believe it's Julius Ona, the director of the Cloverfield Paradox, which I did like, actually. And he also directed a movie called Loose that has very intense Jonathan Demme close-ups, and this movie kind of does have that as well. There's a lot of um, shots of Harrison Ford and other actors looking directly confrontationally into the camera, and I find that it uses that because it shows that it's a movie that's not hiding. It's not hiding from its characters, even though its main character is frequently in the shadows. He's a character called the Leader who was teed up in Incredible Hulk in 2008. So that is what, 17 years ago that this movie follows up. Um, as a result, Harrison Ford feels miscast for this version of General Thunderbolt Ross, who again, confusingly has nothing to do with Thunderbolts. And the limitations of the MCU and blockbuster demands don't give Ford enough of a relationship with Mackie, the new Captain America, to play off of. So they have no relationship. Um, he also could have used a trip to the barber. This is Harrison Ford has been doing this for a while, where he doesn't like clip his hair. uh, Somebody's like, it looked like he looks like he clipped his own hair, but he's playing the president here, so him having like a bad haircut just feels off. Um, it's a bummer William Hurt had to die before getting to play this role, but hey, that's life, you know. He played General Ross in every role in the MCU up to here, and then died of a heart attack. Anthony Mackie lacks the leading man charisma necessary for this role that you would expect Captain America to be, brings the intensity that Chris Evans never had, which makes his version of Captain America identifiable and edgier, but it doesn't solve the fact that Sam Wilson is ultimately still a boring character. Because this feels like the only significant post Avengers Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, I'm giving it a pass and overlooking its flaws because it delivered on the premise of a new world for the MCU. I also thought it was more politically relevant than I thought it would be and kept the best parts of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which, it has a little part of Falcon interacting with the Winter Soldier, which I liked. Again, the character is edgier. It is at least trying to say something politically relevant, so I liked it. But as you know, my theory, or maybe you don't presently, is this. Um, Donald Trump isn't the best president. He does a lot of stuff through executive orders, which General Ross does here, and General Ross is presented as flawed. They do have similarities, Ross and Trump, in real life. And I'm going to spoil the movie because it's not really worth watching. But it ends Captain America Brave New World with, of course, as you've seen in the trailers, General Ross turning into Red Hulk, which, why he's red, it's not really touched upon and is kind of dumb that way. But he ends up at the raft prison. He ends up in prison, and he gets to speak to his daughter, played by Liv Tyler, who's presented as an afterthought. Like, really, that should be the crux of the relationship and is their story. It should kind of be an Incredible Hulk offshoot, and it was fashioned into a Captain America movie. Um, because it kind of fits, but as a result, it feels like a television episode, which it kind of is for the big screen. It's just one that cost 200 million. But anyways, he ends up in jail, and I think that when Trump ends up in jail because his criminal conviction was kind of stayed and they neglected to sentence him or give him any punishment, to the point where I think as soon as his term ends as president and he doesn't have executive protection, I think that people will just pick up where they left off with charging him on things, and he won't have any friends. J.D. Vance and the Republicans won't need him because he's not useful to them anymore, and he'll end up in jail. And then people will come back to this movie that I gave 3 stars that's not even that good, and they'll be like, yes, it was politically relevant for the time, and they'll really play up all the stuff they downplayed when it was coming out about it having any political relevance. But solid movie. Just know that when people praise this and overpraise it years from now, I was the one who called it first. Now, getting back to the last movie I saw yesterday. Um, but what if we could is a line that Stanley Tucci says in this movie, The Core from 2003. I was 9 when this movie came out, and it bombed when it came out in theaters. Um, it was seen as just, another disaster movie, coming off Armageddon stuff. And even for the time, people were like, okay, that's kind of a cool movie idea if the core stops spinning and there's solar flares and blah, blah, blah. But even for me, and again, I was like 9 years old, I was like, this can't be right, right? Like they're drilling into the Earth's crust. Like, how do they have room for anything? And the movie just kind of intentionally fudges it and kind of doesn't try to get around that issue, and that's kind of why it sucked. But it's very much a template, copy and paste script that you've seen 1,000 times before. But you know what? I like the formula of like chosen heroes going to a place unknown. It's kind of like a reworked Journey to the Center of the Earth, essentially, just played completely straight. And because it's from the early 2000s, you get a lot of good character actors. You got Richard Jenkins, you got Stanley Tucci, not knowing the full power of Stanley Tucci, with The Devil Wears Prada and whatnot. You got Bruce Greenwood, a great character actor. Tcheki Cario, who's a guy who famously says, "Welcome to Paris, Johnny," in Kiss of the Dragon, a Jet Li film, which I saw as a kid and loved. Alfre Woodard, who's a good character actress, and Delroy Lindo, who, if you've ever seen on this kind of CNN-like skit from The Good Fight where he's telling his white co-anchor or whatever to say the N-word with him because the guy really wants to say the N-word, and he's like, "Hey, I'll say it with you." Mm, Anyway, funny bit. Delroy Lindo is always good. He's also in Sinners. Um, it's balanced against the demands of a movie starring peak Hilary Swank, uh, which is after her first Oscar, but before her second. And by the way, peak, I just mean that she's like youthful in an action movie. This is kind of a major movie that she was asked to carry, and it's her. She's paired with Aaron Eckhart. Again, male privilege hasn't really done anything to earn leading man status, but it's just kind of put there. This was, I think, the first thing I saw him in, or no, he was in Aaron Brockovich and was like a supporting character in that. But he's like he goes from that to like co-headlining this movie, and Hilary Swank has to win an Oscar to get there. It's just kind of funny. And then you have DJ Qualls as like a nerd who's there. Um, it's a pretty flat movie with a fun premise and a lame direction, but I just love the um, scene, and I have it currently on my Instagram account where they're explaining the premise of the movie, and they're like, this is impossible. Drawing a core to the earth, there's not enough room. There is pounds and pounds of pressure. We would melt before they get there. It makes no sense to do this mission. And then Stanley Tucci, with the perfect amount of like AAA actor pause, he stops, holds up a cigarette, turns, the camera switches, and then says, with a breath, "Baited. But what if we could?" And that's what kicks off the movie. And I just love that. I love disaster movies. So I gave it 2.5 stars. Nothing special, nothing unique about it. Um, Nobody here is doing their best work. Um, the special effects here aren't even that good. It's an Independence Day ripoff. But, movies from that era still had a certain craft to them that movies today lack. And yeah, that's what I'm doing. Now, you know what? Maybe I should try. I'm not signed in, so I can't do it. But do an assassin movie here, which is Sniper. I think it's the ninth one, and because I tracked the previous Sniper movie, and I reference it in my Mission Impossible article because that's a really long running series that has since gone straight to video, but didn't know that it was a Sniper movie per se. And I watched a good 3/4 of it. I was actually dead tired because, again, I'm staying up late, not doing this stuff. Um, but I liked it. It's like good, one of those underrated straight to video series. I just didn't see the majority of the movie because I was like setting something up back here. I was folding my laundry. So it's not enough for me to rate it, but if I do remember it tomorrow, which I think I will, I'll add it as a heart. Um, in fact, let me just see here. If I go Sniper, yeah, that's the first one from 93, and it's Sniper colon like assassin something. Is it even going to pop up here? Because it's a 2020 film with Lachlan Monroe, Tom Berenger. Um, the guy's old enough to have an adult male son. Uh, it's funny, Sniper 2 came 9 years after the first, and I believe it was straight to video, and that's when it took off, because then that did well. 2 years later, they did Sniper 3, and then I don't know how many they've done since. I'll have to look it up. Ultimate Kill, I think, is one that I saw. Yeah, and then Assassin's End. That's what it was. So I'm gonna give it just a heart. I'm gonna add it. Sniper Assassin's End. Yeah. Yeah, why isn't it letting me review it? Am I not signed in? Sniper Assassin's End. Let's go, guys. Correct, I'm not signed in on my phone here. Okay. Well, maybe I should give it one try here. No, I'm not going to tell you my password, even though I find passwords stupid. La-dee-da-da. Oh, in the meantime, I'll tell you a hit tweet that I had. Somebody hates the film yesterday. Somebody always hates a film, but every once in a while you get a unique take on it. And this guy's take was that, if the Beatles stuff was released today, nobody would watch it, or nobody would, it wouldn't be as popular. Um, so what he does is this guy is like, oh, watch me go back in time. Great Beatles song. I make Obi da la di da without building up years of goodwill. And the audience is like, hey man, this sucks ass. And I comment, it's like, here's me putting out Revolution number 9. Get ready. And then I have the picture of the CIA guy disgustingly like tearing off his headset, like as if he's sick of what he's hearing. And that got 400 likes, so good for me. And yeah, that anecdote was just enough time for me to uh, rate this with a heart because I like it. I like that kind of movie. Um, 95 minutes, hey, that's enough. For a second, I thought that that right there reloaded on the page, and again, I have to figure out how I can do. Yeah, go again, and I got nothing else. Okay, that's what I've set up. So amazingly, we're coming in under an hour, and I got some gaming news though. I finished Atomfall. Yes, I finished a video game, like a real video game, not like a we play kind of thing. Um, yeah, uh, Atomfall. It is my, what, 260th gameplay campaign? 243. Wow, way off. I feel like I've been on the 240s forever, but hey. Um, I completed this, get this, on both PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. What happened is I rented it from the library, and then I wasn't sure which copy I would get, so I rented them both. And what happened was I have my Xbox on the big screen, which I share with my dad, and my PS4, which I have in the corner around here. So, like when my dad was watching TV and I wanted to play, I'd just come around the corner and play on my PlayStation. Now, of course, because it was my secondary console for this game, I knew how the game started and stuff, so I just played differently. And it was funny because I wasted a lot less time, and because of that, you're more confident, you play more aggressively. So I ended up, there's an entire level that I did not go through. This is a hub world. It's basically like Fallout. Imagine if you didn't go to a quarter of the map, and that's what I did. Um, and I liked it. It's just, there were a couple of things in it. Like, number one, you think you find a secret. Oh, great, what's in this chest? A chest without a key. Oh, what could it be? I find it on one location on one console, and then I pick up the key on the other. I rush back to where it could be, and then I open it, and it's something that I got on both playthroughs an hour into the game. So disappointing. And Atomfall is kind of filled with stuff like that, where it's like you get so intrigued, and the payoff is like unsubstantial. But you know what? I like these games where there's a bit of light shooting, and a lot of it is just going to talking to interesting characters, figuring out what their deal is. And I kind of covered most of the game just in time for this week. It's getting DLC, but I'm not going to pay for DLC for a game that I've already completed and put several hours into. Even though I'd enjoy it, even though I still remember how to play it, I still have such a big backlog. And DLC is kind of one thing I've never figured out how to do. In the past, I've only bought it for games that I own, and I don't buy very many games. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll make a deposit tomorrow and see how much money I have and reevaluate. Because on Marketplace, I saw somebody was selling a PlayStation 5 for 350 bucks. Good deal, right? Well, it doesn't come with a disk drive. So there's that. And then it's like the photo is taken and it's just sitting on the ground of a carpet. And it's like, okay, is this going to work? Is this going to break on me in 3 months? And then the disk drive scenario where the disk drive has to be registered to someone. Okay, I'm buying someone else's account. What if he doesn't defunction it as his primary PS5? And it's just inviting a bunch of problems. So it's like I want to get a fat PS5 on my own, but I don't want to spend the money. And I've reiterated multiple times how because no full games, no full discs are on games anymore, it's pointless to me. So what I got to do is figure out again which order I want to play these games in. Because I want to beat The Witcher 2. I want to beat Breath of the Wild. I picked up Shaun White snowboarding. I want to beat finish, for Lord's sake. I want to finish um, Affordable Space Adventures, which is my downloadable Wii U game. I want to finish Death Stranding, which my brother is coming to pick up. I haven't even touched Ghost of Tsushima. I have not finished The Frozen Wilds, which, again, um, it's a game from 2017. I think the DLC came out in 2019, but like a game I've long forgotten about how to play, so I just, know how to run, so see if I can run and fire a few things. It's one of those things where I haven't made up my mind and committed on how to play, sort of like I did for Skyrim of like, hey, I'm not going to engage with the combat in this game. I just want to survive and make it through. But it's still prideful of like, hey man, I dusted all these people, all these enemies, no problem when I played it. Why can't I do that? And I don't have the patience to look up and, learn how to play a game that I already knew how to play that I forgot. I'm too prideful for it. So there's that. And then there's the sequel that I kind of want to play too, but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I could rent it from the library, but I don't want a big of a backlog. It's one of those things because as a kid, I had one game. I'd play that game, I'd be satisfied. I'd complete that game, I'd be satisfied. Now, when I have all this backlog, I don't like the junk. So I'm going now, the end of the PS3 generation, end of the PS4 generation still for me. And that's kind of my last chance to correct it. If I don't do it now, then I won't ever. So, I just got to find some time to settle down, dedicated with a job, and then just go do that thing. But yeah, sitting here, wasting my life doing a podcast. Thanks for listening. Although this is work. That's what I've settled on. This is work. So it's not wasteful. Like this was something for me to set up and do. So it's meaningful to do. Um, just as meaningful as my review, which I still didn't work on today. Ugh. But once I complete that review, once I complete my first game review of Atomfall, um, and push those out, then I'll go back to finishing my screenplay, however it takes. So yeah, that's gaming. More gaming stuff is The Last of Us finished. And to be honest, I think it's gotten some undue hate. I think Craig Mazin has gotten some undue hate. The structural problems that he's facing are problems that have existed since the beginning of the game. The problem is the first season adapted the whole first game. The second season adapted half of the second game while getting rid of a fan favorite character. So, unlike Game of Thrones, which had a lot of characters to draw from, this has nothing. And it's breaking for like 2 years. And people are like, well, you got rid of one of our favorite characters and you didn't finish the story in front of you, and it's going to take 2 years. And in the meantime, people are feasting and nitpicking on the casting of the central character who worked well as a 14-year-old girl, but there's a 5 year gap. And, people have seen House of the Dragon now and The Crown where they recast. So that's a lot more palatable for people. And then on top of that, it has the Shazam 2 issue where the character is still being played like they're a prepubescent teen, but they're supposed to be like closer to an adult now, so it doesn't make sense to play them in the same goofy way that they got laughs before. So because of that, people are like, F this is stupid, and really attacking the writer. Craig Mazin is a good writer. He's more plot focused, so that's why. And all of this is just people's frustration, mostly with having to wait 2 years for another season. And I get it. My dad is like, I don't want to follow Abby, who's a character that we don't know about the way that they carried over the structure of the game in the video game The Last of Us 2. What happens is you play as Ellie, who you know, and then you play through about half the game. It's a very clear midpoint, and then it flips and you play from the other perspective. And you basically learn to empathize with who you thought was the villain, which is a major part of the equation. The problem is you're basically asking people to go 2 years, remember your TV show, and then go from the other side. And really, what they needed to do was play out two sides simultaneously, or again, as people begged Neil Druckmann, who's co-writer in some of the episodes, creator of the video game, co-creator of the television series, they needed him to flip it so you played as Abby first, but it doesn't do that. Anyways, Caitlin Deaver is wonderful on the series. Pedro Pascal is great. They give him this, those flashback what happened before Suits does this of like what happened to these characters over this time. They do this wonderful episode, which is amazing and as good as I needed it to be. And it's enough to tide me over. I'll be excited to play. But the problem is that it builds up like the Rat King and, you know, because my dad is watching it on me, I'm like, that is my favorite boss battle. That's my favorite part of the game. But it's like he's not going to get to watch that for 2 years. And, he's getting up there. So, that sucks. Gone are the days when you could wait until just, from May, June, July, August, September, 4 months to do it. And Game of Thrones did that. Like, Game of Thrones came out, I think it was early October at least. And, uh, they finished their run and then they were out in like March 30th, which is crazy. Um, like every year, and they did that for the first 6 seasons. Now, the difference with that is that they had a writing team, and The Last of Us is being adapted by one guy, same as White Lotus and same as Taylor Sheridan. Although they don't like write like Taylor Sheridan, where they pump it out. So yeah. Although I will say, in defense of that, Taylor Sheridan's second season of 1923, which is the finale, was weak. Very weak. That show really petered off. Um, you need something like Tulsa King where you hand it off to some other writer and let him do that. You lay the foundation. To me, Taylor Sheridan is a lot like J.J. Abrams. You have a good foundation, you let it be. There's this show I'm watching now called Duster, week to week. I mean, it's not amazing or anything, but there's stuff that I like. J.J. Abrams co-wrote the first two episodes. He has his Josh Holloway from Lost Sawyer. He has Peter Petrelli from Heroes, although I don't think that he made Heroes. I think that was somebody else. Yeah. Um, but it was Abrams-esque, I'll just say. Anyways, that guy, I think his name is Matt something. Um, he's in Force Awakens and stuff. He's the police captain in this. You got you got him. So you got J.J. Abrams' buddies. It's a 70s throwback. Hey, that's fun. Um, what's funny is that it was a classic Abramsism this week. Begins with the female lead character with a knife to her throat. And it's my dad was like, "Oh, I don't remember this." And I'm like, "It's classic J.J. Abrams. You begin in media res, in the middle of things." And people are like, "Whoa." So that's how you orient people. You kind of knock them off and you surprise them. It's an easy way to do it. But yeah, I hope for it to be good. And yeah, um, I'll tie off here because again, I want to make it short. I've been playing Rainbow Six. It's my game of choice now. And last night, there's a lot of psychopaths that play Rainbow Six. And the best revenge was I was locked up in a game playing with racist teammates, which I have to do a lot in this game. It's very unfortunate. I did my best to, report them and whatnot. Anyways, we get to 4-4. It's a tie game. Next goal wins. My teammate incidentally gets me killed, and then he gets the only other teammate killed, and then he's basically trolling the other guy, knocking him down with a shield where he could finish him off. And he does this for a solid minute, and then he could just kill the guy, finish it, win the point score for the whole team. But he doesn't. He runs away and runs out the clock, and it's just a deliberate troll, and it makes me so mad that like for the first time I go into match replay and I find him and I report him, submit him to Ubisoft, all that, which I never did, and even with video evidence, and I hate this guy, you know. Not as much as I hate the guy who spoiled Life is Strange for me, popping onto my stream and stuff, but games and film are the two areas of my life where you know, I'll, I'm a defensive guy, but I won't be offensive to someone else. I'm reluctant to stand up for some, but when it comes to movies and video games, I'll no holds bars. I'll say what's on my mind. I'll attack if I need to, no hesitation, because that's my outlet. Um, anyways, I did all that for this guy. I was so mad, um, and then I'm like, I can't. And I know it doesn't get better from there, but I'm like, I can't end the night on a loss. I match up with these two young guys. It's always great to talk to people when people have mics and stuff. And I'm kind of in the dark because it's kind of like, okay, I'm the top scorer on the team now. What I neglect to think about is how much better I've gotten at this first person shooter. Because you know the angles, you know the tactics, you know the maps, you know the layouts. I don't think about that stuff much, but I'm like, oh, I'm the best one on this team. We're toast. But I neglect to realize that I have like 6 kills, which is more than I usually get. And we pull together, we have good tactics. There's 3 good people, we pull it out and we win. And I'm like, great. I feel very satisfied about that. Tonight, I log back on. The game pairs me up against the two racist guys that I had to play on the same team. I play against them. I'm the top scorer again. 8 kills this time. I usually, frequent 2. And we sweep them, bring out the brooms, completely demolish them for nothing. It felt so good. These little things are what gameplay is about. And all I have to say to that is, whether it's this week where I'm going to be seeing Ballerina again with my dad and my uncle, um, which I'm looking forward to. They tried something with that movie where they, only wanted the good reviews to come through, and then people are like, "Come on now, you either screen it for us or you don't." And then Lionsgate was like, "Yeah, okay," because this was a movie which they made. Apparently, it sucked, according to Ian McShane, who's in the movie. Ian McShane, famous actor, does not give a shit about like spoilers about fans and stuff. He spoiled his own death on Game of Thrones. He played Al Swearingen on Deadwood and stuff. He's known for he's Winston in the John Wick series. Um, anyways, double dealer. Uh, he commented about how terrible this ballerina movie was, and Lionsgate smartly did the hard thing because a lot of, and especially them and many studios do this before, where it's like, okay, we have a turkey, leave it, don't put any more money into it, don't chase, don't throw good money after bad. Um, what they did was they spent, they punted it a year and they spent money to reshoot it. They hired the John Wick director who, he's made his John Wick movies, and they said, hey, John Wick is one of Lionsgate's, aside from Saw, which makes them a bit of money, a good profit deal. But aside from John Wick and The Hunger Games, which are their main series, because they tried with The Expendables and that didn't work out. The last one was terrible. It didn't make a lot of money. Follow up to one that was expensive and didn't make a lot of money. So that's, in the trash heap. They have The Hunger Games and John Wick, and they're trying to get sold, and they have a business model that's heavily sale dependent. Um, what they do most of the time is just like distribution and stuff. They put in the money to fix this ballerina movie, and they brought back the John Wick director who didn't need to do this, but it's like, if we torch this franchise, it is over. It's over for the franchise. And, because John Wick 4 is essentially the last one. And this is a world expanding, dip your toe in. Can we do a John Wick movie without John Wick? And it kind of turns out that they can't. So what they did was they just added John Wick to the movie in the middle of the movie. And it cost a lot of money. And I'm looking forward to it because it looks like a cool action movie. They basically had to hire another director to complete work, and because of the savviness of film critics and stuff, about this stuff more in advance. But hey, you know, um, I'm here for it. I saw Flight Risk in theaters. Okay, so why not go see this movie? And hey, maybe I'll pay for some good seats or something. You know, life's short. Um, so yeah, looking forward to that. Got that. I need something else as my background. You got in late June, you got F1. Really looking forward to that movie too. The one thing I missed though was when I saw Mission Impossible in theaters. I didn't watch it in IMAX because the seats suck and are uncomfortable. So I missed the when he goes into the submarine and you can see the clip online where as it depressurizes or decompresses, the black bars rise up. Very cool. Very, they did the same thing in Hunger Games, but yeah, it's some cool stuff. I love it when they find like a story excuse to alter the aspect ratio. Um, yeah. So, anyways, um, yeah. So that's what I'm looking forward to. I'll try and start, my endless backlog, and you'll be hearing about it. But yeah, 115 is where I'm gonna end this on. Pretty happy with that because that's the length of Scary Movie 3, one of my favorite comedies. And yeah, I'll get back to you and you'll hear from me next week. So until next time, Film Gamer out, and I will see you at the movies.